The NFL stands for not for long.
Set, Sharga and Armstead. Roll out, Walker still running out. Looks to the left, wide open, Thompson touchdown. Colin Thompson with the touchdown. There was nobody within 20 yards.
What a catch off the bobble. Colin Thompson scoops it up.
Lofting corner, the end zone. It is caught for the touchdown. The first NFL touch for Colin Thompson is a score.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another edition of the Colin Thompson Show, presented by Not For Long Media, our Not For Long Media family, our network, our podcast, and YouTube and media network. Check out all our shows. And then brought to you by the Fudge Kitchen, fudgekitchens.com. They ship fudge and sweet treats across the country. Just sent my friend some fudge down in Vero Beach. Took a couple days, so 72 hours, maybe a little bit longer from when I went on the website, fudgekitchens.com. Got him a nice pound of creamy, delicious fudge, and found a way to, get it to him, get some saltwater taffy, and get that pretty quickly down to Vero Beach from Cape May, New Jersey. They ship it right out of the Cape May store there, right on the Washington Street Mall. They have 6-7 locations down the Jersey Shore, all the way from Ocean City to Cape May. Fudgekitchens.com. They'll ship their fudge and sweet treats, saltwater taffy, my favorite, across the country. Appreciate everybody tuning in. A fun little episode today. I did an interview with Riley Cote, a guy I looked up to a ton when I was a kid. My dad and my mentors in the sports world always pushed me to the fighters, right? The guys that were tough and physical and could do both. And I think it had a huge impact on me as a player. Not the most finesse player, but definitely a physical player. And I enjoy the defending my teammates side of things. I think that stemmed from my time growing up watching the Broad Street Bullies and watching the Flyers. And hey, if you touch our best player, we're going to have a problem, and defending people and, defending your family. And I think it all stemmed from my passion and my love for hockey. I love the fighting aspect of hockey. I think it's a self-police game. There's some things that happen on a football field that are really disrespectful. And I think they get allowed, and maybe the guy may get fined a little bit of money and a slap on the wrist. But at the end of the day, you can't really go out there and fight. Now in training camp, if things get disrespectful, there's fights, and I really enjoyed that side of things. Maybe I'm a little crazy, but it was self-policed in a way. And there's no refs out there. Really, they're not going to do anything. There's no commissioner watching the game or anything that's going to fine you. It's a practice against another team in a joint practice. So I always enjoyed those when a fight broke out, when someone was being disrespectful, or defending your teammates, even if they made a mistake and they were being disrespectful. But I really learned it from a guy like this, Riley Cote, who's on the show today. 8 years of pro hockey, NHL, Flyers, his big stint there. And really, he's on this mindfulness and this mind health journey with current players in the NHL, former players in the NHL, people in other sports. He's lost a bunch of weight, super healthy, trying to live a nice balanced lifestyle. We talk about weed, we talk about mushrooms, we talk about natural pain meds. Probably opened up more about that stuff than I have in the past. The use of Toradol and Vicodin and all these different stuff the NFL has for you to really mask your injuries instead of help you cope with them. Riley gets into all that stuff. So he's a fantastic guy. This is a great episode about just mental health and sports and the grind and toughness and just his journey that he's on. Check out his website, rileycote.com, Life on Purpose, a hockey enforcer turned yogi. Really cool stuff. And he just shares his past experience, years of studying, practicing yoga, mindfulness, integration of, sacred earth medicines, our ethos, and the Cote Culture coaching program. So really cool stuff. We touched on some Flyers history towards the end too, and some of my favorite players I had to ask him about. That's just it for me in Key West. We're going to have an episode a little bit later this week, maybe Tuesday or Wednesday, come out, really talk about everything from the Super Bowl and all this stuff. There was so much to talk about. I just, needed some time away and have some other things I've been working on down here. I wanted to focus on that too. So Riley Cote, Flyers enforcer turned yogi, a great guy, and I think you'll really enjoy this episode. Thanks for tuning in, and tune into all our shows and Not For Long Media, and support our friends over at Fudge Kitchen, fudgekitchens.com. All right, so we got Riley Cote joining us today. Someone I grew up watching, huge fan of, love the blue collar, toughness, just leadership, the whole nine. You embodied Philadelphia. You have a great podcast, Nasty Knuckles, and really jacked to have you on the show today. How you doing, man?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
Really appreciate you coming on. Really do.
Yeah, of course.
What's going on in your world these days?
Wow. It's a loaded question. I got a lot of irons in the fire. I got 2 young girls. I was piecing a few projects together. I'm in the world of mindfulness, and I do a lot of teaching, but I'm also trying to integrate the mindfulness piece really into the psychedelic world, and just mindful cannabis use, just kind of just advocating for plant medicines, as well as again, speaking for how I see these medicines being used a little more intentionally and mindfully. And so between teaching mindfulness to youth hockey players, to unions and corporations, that sits on its own. But I think my heart is kind of like integrating this piece with all these other kind of separate projects that I have that still align with the world of mindfulness, but are a little bit separate. So that, and I got 2 young girls, just chasing after them, trying to keep them in line, and just a few creative projects going on. So it's been nice. It's nice to find alignment, and it's nice to find creative projects that sit well with the heart. I felt like I've been chasing a lot of different things in my life, and you know how it is. It's just it's a grind, and doesn't necessarily settle well. So I feel like I'm in a good place, and things are kind of falling in place as well.
Transitioning post-career is extremely hard. I don't want to transition. I'm not ready for it yet. I think I got a little bit more juice in the tank. I just didn't get really an opportunity this year other than training camp. So I'm going to give it one more go here, because I just think, why not? Worst case, I'm staying in shape, and I'm doing this stuff, and I'm still moving forward. If I get the chance, I'll be ready. I was ready for this training camp. I think I played my best football ever, but still didn't get an opportunity. And you understand that as well. Sometimes the ball or the puck doesn't bounce your way. So, it's interesting, the mindfulness stuff. My first taste of it was Matt Rule at Temple, 2014. We were started to bring in some people for some mindfulness, some meditation, just discussing those things. And then we lost the opening game to Army. And we had someone come in and do something pregame for us about mindfulness and finding your center and calming your mind. And I loved it. Because to me, I'm a turn the switch guy. Everyone's like, oh, you can't, you got to build it up. I'm like, I don't have to build it up. Like, I love this game. We strap the pads on, like, I'll go out and play whenever, but I don't need to be turning my volume up to 10 all day long. Like, I could take a nap 20 minutes before the game and then go out and play. I do that before practice anyway. So what's the difference?
All right.
And then we lost to Army. And I understand why Coach Rule got rid of it, right? Guys were like falling asleep, and it wasn't good, but it was good to see that A, he cared, and B, we were trying something new. And now we have, team psychologists, there's a lot of investment into players' mental health, way more than when I started in 2017. Do you see more of an impact on these conversations that you're having? Are you hearing more from players in the NHL that there's more of this stuff going on, helping players more mentally, not just physically?
Yeah, I mean, I think the time is now. The world is kind of ready for it. We're in a mental health crisis. I mean, guys are struggling on and off the field, on and off the ice. I mean, this is not exclusive to sports. I mean, we're in a grind. We're in a grind, big time. So, it's not new information, right? This is old as humans have walked the earth. I mean, it's an intersection of, say, some Buddhist teachings, yoga teachings. I mean, it's really about you said finding center. It's being present, right? I mean, like, we perform our best when we're present, and when we're present, we find flow state, right? And I think every athlete, every performer is looking for that. So, the quicker we can get into it, the longer we can get into it. It's also teaching emotional intelligence. I mean, I was an emotional guy. Like, sports the world can get the best of you sometimes, and we can overreact. And I think, in sports, sometimes, being able to pause and take a breath and not be overreactive can serve you and your team probably generally a lot better than overreacting and doing something stupid. In my world, I've definitely done some stupid things on the ice where being just emotional and, and taking that teaching and applying it to the real world, outside of the arena and how life can, squeeze you, corner you, and it's easy to overreact. I mean, look at the world we're living in. We live in a world of overreaction and violence and aggression and stress. So I think there's this element of, it's obviously doing some inner work. It's being able to manage situations a little bit more skillfully. But I think all these things point to better mental wellness and better performance. And the world in the sports world is certainly accepting of it. I mean, I can't tell me how many parents have thanked me for introducing this to this, this pocket of youth hockey in the Philly area, and they need it too. The coaches need it. It's not just the players, because outside of the player, they're around their parents and the coaches the most, and they're the ones that are squeezing them probably more than anybody, and outside of putting pressure on themselves. So, I know the sports world, professional sports world has adopted this to some degree. I mean, I've played with Danny Briere, and we've been speaking about, integrating this into the system in some way, shape, or form, whether it's, the newly drafted players, their minor league players with the Phantoms, and then, it's not like the NHL guys don't need it, but it's just a different way of thinking, because we've overtrained the physical body. I don't know how much bigger, faster, stronger, and quicker, mobile we can get. Guys are getting hurt. And then you talk about separating this world of strength and conditioning and training. And really, this is, I think the world of mindfulness isn't necessarily directly applied for performance. That's a byproduct of it. If we separate the human from the athlete, to me, this is where I think we identify with our jobs and we embody, the sport. However, I think when we do that, it serves its purpose to be great at what we try and do. But I think we abandon, the human element of it. I think this is where guys get in jams, where they think that their spiritual being is an athlete. They think that that's who they are, and they get lost in it. And then, you get cut, you're not playing, things go wrong, we don't know how to deal with it, we go to the bottle, we go here and there, and we're trying to manage the grind, the stress in unsustainable ways. So I like to separate it and let's just take care of the human. And if you take care of the human piece, you think better, you manage your emotions better, you're more present. That clearly translates and applies to performance on the field, or 9 to 5, or whatever the hell job you're doing. This is not exclusive to sports, and it's not so much about training as it is just being being okay, sitting still, maybe picking up a drum and rhythmic mindfulness and getting into some flow state. But all these little things, it's enjoyable. It could be enjoyable, but I think it's just nurturing the soul a little bit, and taking a time to breathe and just be. And because we go, we grind. It's work versus recovery, and I think that a lot of players, a lot of people struggle with the recovery element of it, in the sense that they still want to go when they're supposed to be recovering. They still want to do more, and it's not sustainable. Something's got to give at some point, and then the wheels start falling off the carriage. And then we don't have any coping mechanisms. And then again, reaching for the bottle, reaching for this, reaching for that. And we distract our minds. And I think that's the biggest thing, is we live in a world of distraction. And everything is trying to rob us of the present moment. And we don't have the coping mechanisms, again, to stay present. And this takes practice. And this is why I think if you can take that mindset of how we pour our hearts into practice for the game, if we could just take a piece of that practice and practice towards being a better human, a more functional, optimal human, everything seems to get better. At least the way I see it and I've experienced it.
Wow, I needed this today probably than you realize, or I realize, or our listeners need, and I'm sure people need this too. But even for me, okay, I'm in training camp with the Vikings, and I've been just training, because you never know when you get a call. You could be up right away in the NFL, and there was a lot of tight ends that got hurt this year, and I didn't get an opportunity. A couple of phone calls here and there that kept me going and kept the juice alive, but nothing happened.
So I'm like, all right, I'm going to do my normal process. So the season usually ends, and then I train for another week and let the body come down and swim and sauna and a little light lifting and some cardio. And then I take, 4 weeks off, 2 to 3 weeks of really just whatever I want to do, walks, relax, try to at least. And then a week, 2 weeks of integration, and then I'm back into it, and I'm in it right now. And Riley, it has been so hard. But usually when I'm with a team, I feel like I earned it, right? Just made a bunch of money. My body feels like shit. You're like a warrior coming back from war. You just want to like relax. I can really decompress. I'll pop on a movie, right? I just will chill. But now I'm like, I don't deserve the time off. I know I'm physically taking the time off, but mentally I can't. That's why I think I got a cold, right? My body's like forcing me to sit on my ass and just relax. Even last night, I'm in bed and I listen to a lot of hockey podcasts, and I need to start listening to yours. I'm working through them. I'm like Chicklets, 32 Thoughts, right? I got the big ones, but I need to get into yours, and that's on me. And I will now more than ever. But I'm laying in bed and my mind is 1,000 miles an hour. And I usually am pretty good to calm it down. So I actually was listening to 32 Thoughts in the shower right before, and I just put that on and set a timer. And that allowed me to calm my mind. I don't even remember what they were talking about. I just went to bed. And it was like I had to be busy in my mind, which was crazy. Like I should. So that's what I'm struggling with now is, did I deserve this? And that's the hardest part when it's like, this will be my 7th year playing professional football. My mind and body is definitely worn down, and I need this off time to get me going and make another run.
Yeah, that resonates with me, and I think this resonates with most people. I think we struggle with that element of relaxation because we grew up in a culture that's like, you say work, grind, right? And it's like sleep when you're dead, like all this like terrible advice because it's like it serves its purpose for like short bursts, like sprints that are necessary, but this is a marathon. Like we can't run ourselves into the ground, and that's what happens. When we're stressed and we're not resting properly and relaxing, the body gets weak and sick, right? I mean, and that's just a byproduct of that. And I think this is they say important to talk about in yoga. When you talk about posture, we talk about effort and ease, right? You're finding this balance, this sweet spot, right? Not too much effort, you get hurt. Not too much ease, you're not doing enough. You're trying to always trying this dance with the effort and the ease. And I think if you can apply that to, I mean, I understand you're a professional athlete, but nonetheless, I think the rules still apply. And we can distract our minds, we're all this other stuff. But I think like this is going back to the mindfulness pieces. I think that's what happens is when we distract our minds is we never get to the core of calming the mind in a sustainable fashion, because then we're always going to need something to like get our mind off, and we think we're relaxing, but we still our nervous system still feeling that pressure, that stress, and therefore we might not be sleeping as optimal as we should be. We're not waking up as fresh as we could be, and then we're a little more stressed out, a little more anxiety the next day. And then maybe we need to chase that with some stimulants, extra stimulants, whatever that process lands up looking like. So I think and I was very similar too, where, I didn't have these understandings and these coping mechanisms when I played. Like it was like, I was total meat. Like, just grind days off. I'm like, no days off. We go to the rink and we show the organization that we're there.
And that's a part of it too, as a bottom of the roster guy.
Yeah.
Right. Like, that's who I am. And I know you're a grinder fighter in the NHL. Like you're not a first line center.
Right.
Like there's a part of that too. Like Riley's here, like he's here, he's visible. And listen, it teaches some great habits. It really does. Like to be there and be accountable and work hard. And I think it does give you confidence. There's a trade-off, right? Like I'm always working, so I am going to be confident. But, you're going to take from Peter to pay Paul, right? Eventually it's going to get you. And I've learned that. I'm always like when I see these young guys after the season on Instagram, like they're already doing like ball carrying drills like the week after the season. I message them all, like all the guys I've played with. I'm like, put the ball down.
Yeah.
And take your cleats off. Like stop. You're in the NFL now. This isn't college football where you're 18, 19. you're 23 and you want to play till you're 33. So no, man, but these are the conversations that are going to allow, like, hopefully, whatever. We're going to be talking football with my kids, or you're going to be talking hockey with your kids eventually at like a higher level when they're in their teens and 20s and 30s. And you're going to be like, wow, these players are so good now. Like, none of this was available to me, which I think is really cool. Like, what's the sports going to look like? And I know we're talking to everybody here, but obviously Riley and I are both, professional athletes at some points in our lives. Like, that's what I'm excited to see, is what these sports will look like when this stuff is available. There'll always be struggle, but I think the NFL's done a nice job. Like, for the rest of our career, not even career, but post-career, we could talk to anybody. Our wife and I could talk to anybody, like, no matter if you played a day in the league or, like, I think you're full tenured veteran, which I think is really cool. I don't know if a lot of leagues do that. So
yeah. I mean, I think the NHL does a pretty good job with their support system, but I think it could be more robust. Like, there's a lot of this is just like, and maybe I'm being hard on it because I know that there's just so much more out there and just better, like better substance. Like, they try, but I'm just not sure that it's that impactful for some of the stuff that guys are dealing with. Like, you talk about, like, a lot of these guys deal with identity crisis, right? Kind of what we were talking about earlier at the start. Like, you embody this job, right? Like, it's all you know. Like, I've been playing hockey since I was 4 years old, right? Like, up until I retired in 2010, like, that's all I did. Like, I didn't know anything else. I didn't know anything else. I didn't have any other skill sets. So, like, you pour your heart into it. You think you're that until it's over, and you realize you're not that. So you have this, like, this major struggle of, like, who the hell am I, and how do I move forward in this crazy world where I feel like that's who I was and I'm not. And I think a lot of guys struggle with that identity piece. It's much similar. It's very similar to what veterans go through. The military veterans, like, they embody it. They put their heart and soul into it. They're putting everything on the line, and then they come back and they're like, well, now what? Like, where's my community? Where's my people? Where's my structure? Where am I going? What am I doing? So
when you're used to this high level of engagement, like, that's my thing now, is like, I'm a social guy. My cup, I just don't find my cup full unless I'm in a building. Like, think about all the people you interact with when you walk into, Flyer skate zone in Voorhees, New Jersey, and, like, from the people at the door to the people that clean up the trash to, like, and that's what feeds me, is human interaction, and, like, around great people. And you're talking to the GM, assistant GM, the trainers, and you're on the ice with your guys, and you're grabbing lunch after, and then you're hitting a lift after, and then you're at dinner and home with your family. Like, you are filling your cup.
Totally. Yeah.
I think that's what we, again, same with and I mean to cut you off, but I think it's a really interesting point of, like, filling that cup socially, whether you're a social person or not. I think a lot of guys struggle with that too, because it's over just like that. Not just your career, but also, like, it's your family in a house or whatever you decide to do in your personal life. And that's a major drop in what you've been used to.
Yeah. Yeah. That community piece is huge, connection, it's like, you don't realize it when you're in that bubble, right? Like, how meaningful that is, right? And all the things you just mentioned, like, how powerful those things are. And they give you purpose. Like, they're all kind of, like, all intermingled, and there's just always this constant progression of, events and practice and training and this and that, but it's always kind of together. Like, there's always, like, that support system until there's not. And then I think, like, humans need connection. They need community. Like, since the start of time, tribes have been, healing in community and being there for each other. It's not, Lone Ranger, you're by yourself and figuring this thing out. I think that's where a lot of guys struggle. They feel isolated. They feel alone. They don't have that community. They don't have a direction. They have a lot of juice to offer, but they don't know how to apply it and where to direct it, because they don't have that roadmap that, the organization gives at the start of the year. Here's your schedule. And, here's what you got to wear for this, for this trip. Oh yeah, you can just wear this and that, what I mean? Everything's kind of laid out for you. Yeah. And all of a sudden it's like, it's not there anymore. And
even your free time's laid out for you.
Free time. So yeah, exactly. Days off, this and that. It's like, everything. And then so now you're sitting there and you're idling, and you're taking out on your wife, your spouse, and that obviously trickles down into the family dynamic, maybe down to the children if you have. And so I think all these organizations can do better, and they're trying, but I think there's just certainly some stuff out there that I think that they could be introducing and offering that's beyond just like pick up the phone and call, which is great, but these guys need a little more substance. They need a little more. They need a little more essence. I don't think they're these organizations realize. And maybe they do, but like just realize how much of a struggle it is for guys to embark on this new quest and where to go, and maybe help how to funnel them into maybe just starting with that community, like building that community outside of the locker room, whatever that looks like, for the wives as well. Like they need it too, because they're kind of living in that bubble as well. Yep. They're going to games, they got all the wives and all the girlfriends and everything, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh no, we're not rolling like we're used to. And, it seems like the world's caving in, but like, it's not about that. It's kind of finding a way to redefine yourself and recreate yourself and take what you've built and that brand that you kind of built and all the network that you've created and the people and whatever that looks like, and maybe having some strategy. I think that's where they could probably do a good job, is like, guess what? Like, you are a brand, whether you think you are or not, whether you have a Instagram or Twitter account or not, like you've built some sort of brand, and you have a network, and you have this foundation that people look up to. So how do we use this and apply this into business, into entrepreneurship, whatever, wherever you want to go? I think shifting that perspective. And the other thing I will say, and I may be a little biased to the world of psychedelics, and they've been super helpful for me to like help me transition out of the game, but like maybe it's sending these guys to like go find yourself a little bit, like shed the old skin, let it go and make sense of it, and come together in integration circle after, and kind of discuss what we've learned and how we can take all these learnings and apply them in this world moving forward. Because I know the organizations aren't going to do that, but I'm just saying, we need to maybe help these guys. Like there's these nonprofits that are helping veterans do this, find themselves, find that healing, because a lot of guys are banged up too. They leave the game not on their terms. There's a lot of psychological fluff there that's happening with these guys. Pain, right? Again, unsustainable coping mechanisms, booze, pills, so like they're almost set up for failure if that's the way you're going to manage the grind, and you can get away with it for a short period of time when you're younger, because you can recover quicker. When you get older, I mean, it's like, it's when you hear these stories like, oh yeah, when you get older, this and that, it's like, it's true. Like you don't recover quite as quickly, and things seem to wear on you a little bit longer. So, that's why I've been such a huge advocate for cannabis. I've been speaking, Brad Marsh, the president of the Flyers alumni, gave me a platform like 6 years ago to speak to the alumni, around CBD, cannabis, THC, the differences between, the state medical program and like hemp-derived CBD. But just like you see all these old school guys, Broad Street bullies, like they're barely getting in the door, stiff as shit, pain. A lot of them gone through substance abuse programs, and it's like, well, how are these Broad Street bullies like once like trotted around town as like the champions, 2 Stanley Cups, and like this is like it's kind of the way we deal with our veterans. Is like the VAs is like, just swallow more pills. Like can't we have a more robust, like legitimate program to help these guys get on their feet where they're not crippled and barely getting by and want to kill themselves, and like, I see it, and it's just it's sad. It's sad. But this is why I do the work, that I do, is I just want to be a ripple and maybe make a small little pebble of change, and maybe change one mind that maybe believes in it and maybe helps change other minds, and you got to get rid of this old guard. And that's the good thing about, Briere being in the position of general manager, Keith Jones. These are like, it's kind of a transition from the old guard to this newer generation of thinking, where like the old school guys would have never even had a meeting with me about this, because I like, you're just this crazy,
they would have thought you're nuts. You're a hippie, or you're a guy who's out of the game now. You're
just trying to find a little in here, and it's like, I don't believe in it, so it's not real type of deal. But the response I get, Ian LaPerriere, I'm good buddies with, he's the head coach of the Phantoms. Like, he's been lobbying for me to get in there. It's just, there's some politics, when you talk about strength and conditioning, like I had some meetings around like whose toes am I actually going to be stomping on? Because I'm not coming in here in the world of strength and conditioning. Like, I want you to know that, I surrender. I'm not coming in and trying to take anybody's job there.
It's the mental side. You'd be a mental
side,
strength coach.
And then it's like
you pair with the strength coach because you've done all that stuff before.
Totally. And then you have like the politics of like, well, we have a sports psychologist. Well, I'm not a sports psychologist either, and like, so I've kind of like, I'm realizing that it falls in this other bucket. It's not strength and conditioning, it's not sports psychology, but it just takes a little while to, to find this understanding of where this sits in, because corporate sports is, as it's a machine, and it's a well-oiled machine, and we don't want to move too many parts because fluster too many people. So, but that being said, I just keep banging the drum, keep doing what I do, and showing the work that I'm doing, and being visible doing it, and people see it. It's an energy, right? They feel it. It's like, well, how can you have like been 220? Like, I was 220 pounds or so when I play it. Fat, lifting way too much, eating way too much, but I was also fighting guys way in my weight class. But like the transition and lose 30, 35 pounds and being, I would say, like the best shape that I've ever been, like, like physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And they see it, like, it's like, it's undeniable, but it's like, they have to, connect the dots in the science piece. Like, how does it, it's like, there's this strategy, and I'm patient, I've been patient because I've been, banging the drum around cannabis way before it was, cool or sexy to, to be speaking publicly about cannabis and psychedelics. So I know that there's a level of patience that needs to be, sat on, and people need to kind of do their own research and do their own digging, find the science and make sense of it until they can actually stand behind it and say, guess what? We believe what you're doing, and, we want this program or some version of it, in our organization or in our corporation. I'm speaking with the union, like, unions, right? I mean, you got old school Teamster guys, right? Like sitting in their trucks all day. And I would say they're a version of a professional athlete, industrial athlete, but they don't get paid to take care of their body, right? They get paid to work. But like, in the sports world, like there's a whole science around sports, sports performance and recovery, right? There's all this money poured into this, but the union guys don't get that. It's like, grind your body, go do all this. And then, you talk about mental struggles these guys have, but these are like old school blue collar guys. And the fact that the unions are open to this, because they realize how much money they spend on the back end. You talk about reactive medicine and guys, substance abuse and depression and you name it. You go down the list of why guys aren't going to work is because they physically, mentally can't, because they have no coping skills, booze, pills, unhealthy habits, and the back end spend is insane, and it's not really getting to the core of the problem. So all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, well, maybe we can prevent some of this by actually maybe giving these guys some tools, some coping mechanisms to take care of their body a little more, like lengthen the spine, create a little energy, like breathe a little bit more mindfully, like these things that are within us, that have been just lost, and they're not complicated really, but they require some level of awareness and practice. But things are changing. Like, I look around and I'm like, maybe it's the bubble I'm living in, but it surely seems like, these corporations, these sports organizations, like the world is ready for it, because we can't keep digging ourselves into deeper holes with our mental, emotional, and spiritual health here, because it's going to get uglier, unfortunately.
No doubt. The get off my lawn folks, like it's time. It's time for them to move on. Like, right. They did a great job for what they know, right? They're probably way more aware of certain things more than their predecessors, their bosses, right? Like, back in the day, this conversation would be the wildest, hippiest.
Yeah.
Right? And then now you have a guy like, we keep using Danny Briere. For those that don't know, he's the Flyers general manager. He's a great player for the Flyers, Buffalo Sabres. And he's new, right? It's his first time getting a GM job. Again, speaking to the people that don't know who we're talking about, Keith Jones is the general manager of he's the president of the Flyers. He was on TV forever, played for the Flyers. Right, they're open to it. They may not even participated in this stuff, but they're having the conversation. So the next group that comes in 20 years from now, like we talked about, this will all be involved. Like the nutritionist should be able to hand you something like, hey, listen, I'm struggling sleeping. Okay, here's a little bit of THC, CBD. Here's something to help you. Like there's no reason why a nutritionist can't be like, yeah, here you go. Instead of they hand me a sleep drink that I got to get up and pee in the middle of the night with, and I'm groggy in the morning with.
Yeah.
Like, okay, it has its value and it's good for, I was taking a couple different things to help me sleep and I felt great. I did recover well, but I really think mentally it just calmed me down because I took it. I went to bed earlier. So it helped my process, but it didn't help me in the long run probably. So that's what I think the next step is. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this is like, first off, things need to become federally legal. But second off, even if it doesn't, guys, I could speak for the NFL. Guys are microdosing. Guys are, weed is, I would say 75% of the league, 50 to 75% of the league is on a routinely basis consuming marijuana somehow, some way. And guys are better off because of it.
100%.
And I mean, we don't have to go through all the stress, sleep, you name it, right? Pain. Would you rather take Toradol, Vicodin, all that good stuff, or you rather have something to calm you down at night, help you sleep? I know guys after games, they're so wound up, they can't go to bed till like 6, 7 in the morning. A little different hockey. We only play 17, 18 games. So, and this would be like an offensive lineman, right? I'm speaking about one guy who plays 70, 80 snaps against a 350-pound man all game, and you just punch each other for 4 hours. Like you feel horrendous.
Yeah.
So no, I think that's the future. And I want to hear your thoughts. Is nutritionists being like, boom, like I could go to Riley. What are you feeling? Right. I think, and again, I'll be your sales guy here. You're a perfect guy for the liaison between the training room, the strength coaches, the front office, and the coaching staff. Because players trust you coming to you now that I'm getting to know you better. Players, obviously, you played, you've been in the mountaintop, you've won games, you've won championships. You know what it's like to play in this league. And then you've done all the things from behind closed doors. You were that hardworking guy. You were so like, yeah. I know I'm all over the place, but to answer my question, to ask you a question, do you think that's the future though? Like going to nutritionist and being like, hey, I'm sore today, instead of going to the training room and say, hey, can I get some Tylenol?
Yeah, 100%. I think it's some bit already there, at least on the cannabis side of things. At least more CBD based products in the locker room. I'd like to see it trickle down. Whether it's probably from like the sports science, like the top of the food chain there. So, whether it's a nutritionist or strength and conditioning, however their minds come together and be like let's put these guys on some sort of cannabinoid program, pre, post, just from an anti-inflammatory standpoint, pain management standpoint, sleep, like you said, sleep, anxiety, right? And this is like within the locker room. These are like little, maybe more sports specific products, tinctures, like massages, topicals. But I do know, to your point, guys are using flour and other products outside the locker room, and I think it's great in the sense that it's like a harm reduction model, as you mentioned. Like it's certainly much healthier and safer than popping an opioid or an Ambien and whatever else, and then washing those down with booze. There's a lot less drinking. I can't speak for the NFL, but I know in hockey a lot less drinking than in the past. There's obviously still partying, but not like it was back in the day. Guys pour a premium on recovery, right? This is what cannabis-based products are that. I mean, when I was coaching the Phantoms, you go from beers on the bus to guys who are infusing their peanut butter and coconut oil and sit in the back of the bus after games. They're eating their THC, right? Because they want to sleep. They want to feel better. Sleeping on the bus in the minor leagues isn't the easiest thing to do. So, they get a better night's sleep. They wake up, wherever the hell we're landing up that night in Lowell or wherever the hell, and they can get up and feel better than just like laying, in their seats, drinking beers and taking Ambien or NyQuil, whatever the hell they were taking back in the day. So, and then the NFL is even taking a step further where they've eliminated the cannabis test. They're no longer testing for cannabis, right? So this doesn't jam guys up where they're worrying about their careers. They can actually safely manage pain, anxiety, and sleep, versus having to feel the need to take an opioid, an opioid-based product that that would essentially do the same, but is highly addictive and highly destructive. How many guys have been washed up with these things? So I'd like to see the NHL do this. NHL is still a banned substance, even though no one goes through the substance abuse program for cannabis alone. I think it's the international borders that makes it complicated. Canada is fully legal with cannabis. They don't want guys, leaving Toronto and coming, to wherever, and then you're dealing with a whole other set of liability issues. But I would like to see, sooner than later, some like legitimate program, like sports science, cannabinoids for this and that, like restructured pre-post. You said the microdosing. I mean, I could speak for hockey too. Again, this is not through the organization because guys are doing this on their own because of it being a banned substance.
Mm-hmm.
But microdosing, I mean, it's I would love to see that, interface with that whole sports performance, sports science world where you can, you could have this from a top-down approach where guys are doing this, in a very legitimate way without having to feel like the need to go on the street. Not that, buying psilocybin on the street is anything like, buying, we're not talking about buying crack or anything like that. It's obviously a different world when you talk.
It's easy to access. It's easy to find. This isn't right. Yeah, you're not rolling to South Philly there. South Philly's a good place. North Philly, where I went to Temple's a little bit different.
Yeah.
South
So
Philly.
I mean, it's happening, guys. Guys are ahead of the curve, right? I mean, guys are always trying to find better ways to recover and perform, and they know the shit that's been forced down their throats hasn't worked. How many guys through substance abuse programs? How many guys have had to, unfortunately, die? Needlessly for with their addiction issues, based on a surgery that they got prescribed pills that they land up getting swallowed up by the machine on. So harm reduction, I say harm reduction, but it's also performance. I mean, this is better mental wellness, better recovery, better performance. So that is the future. Yeah, 100% agree. It's kind of, I want to say it's already there, but when I say the future, fully integrated through the organization. No drug testing, no bad substance. Let the guys perform and recover and be well. We shouldn't have to pick one or the other. I want to recover with some sustainable tools, but I'm going to forfeit my job because I choose to do it this way. Versus, you got to take some poison here, but you keep your job and you'll probably be enslaved. We got to change the model a little bit. And I think we are slowly. But it's taken a long time. Think about the NFL. I just scratch my head. These guys bang. You guys bang way heavier and harder than we do. And we bang. It's 82 games is a grind. But imagine, like you said, that example, 4 hours on the line, boom, 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 and then you can't use that. You can't use that plant. You got to use these. Here's that. That's how you treat your people. That's how you treat. But
be 6 Advil. That the standard would be 4 to 6 Advil.
4 to 6 Advil, yeah.
Right,
great for your liver.
Yeah, great for your. And then you have a 6-pack, right? Of course, because that's what you did.
Yeah.
I changed. So for me, I'm a beer drinker. I like to have my beers and have a good time. But I'm not a daily, or I'm probably once a week, especially in season. I'll do the night after the game. I will not drink because I want to recover as much as I can. And then the night on Monday nights, because we're off Tuesday in the NFL. Every Tuesday we're off. I'd have a six pack of beer and hang out with my wife and have dinner. And on Monday nights I would do it. Yeah. So I recovered Tuesday and it was fine. It was good. It was a mental reset for me. It calmed me down. The older I got, the less I did of it. But I think it's almost a part of what we did because I did it in college, right? After games, we'd go out. Just get banged up, right? We went out and partied, right? You did it with the Flyers, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
And we could go down this rabbit hole the last 5-10 minutes here. I do want to talk even though this has been fun, some funnier stuff because I know what these Flyers teams were like back in the day a little bit. Who were some of the characters you played with in Philly? I mean, you're on some teams there that were, you had huge personalities, great players, and you guys won a bunch of games.
Yeah, I would say guy Scott Hartnell.
Hartnell down.
Tops the list. And I've known Hartsey since I was 16. We played junior hockey together, actually, and he hasn't changed. I mean, he's just a goofball, always screwing around, keeps it light. Guy like Aaron Asham, funny as shit, just got the smirk on, just always goofing off. And then, you get those two guys together. Geez, who else? I mean, a guy like Upshaw was a pretty fun guy to have around. We had really awesome guys. Even a guy like Brian Boucher, just funny, funny guy that in a different way, where he's good, just had good impressions and just the way he carried himself, just a goofball in his own way. Geez, who else?
Who's on that team? Loople.
Yeah, Loops. Yeah, Loops is a good guy.
Danny Briere was on those teams.
Danny B, yeah, no, all great guys. I was just thinking, characters that just you see them and you just like a guy like Todd Fedoruk too. I don't know if you're Friggy. I played junior hockey with Friggy too, and this guy again hasn't. He's obviously matured, but he's still this child. And I say this in a positive way. He's awesome. He's so funny. In tears. But I remember this one time in junior hockey where. So I played in the Western Hockey League in Saskatchewan, an hour and a half northwest of Saskatoon. I'm from Winnipeg, which is an 8-hour drive from there. So the closest team for me was this Brandon, Manitoba. I remember when I was 16 years old rookie, he was 19, he was a veteran, he was already drafted by the Flyers. And I'm going back home or back near home where my parents are going to come and see me. And this guy's, seeing these cows on the pastures, going through Saskatchewan, and he was making these big moo sounds, and we had this, moo, just hilarious, and I'm laughing, and we got this old school coach, Kevin McClellan, he's looking back, giving me the hairy eyeball, and I'm like, oh, better not laugh, can't laugh on the bus, and then he does it again, and I'm fucking geez, Freddie, stop, man, you're just an animated character. And then Kevin McClellan comes back and he's like, you're not in the lineup tonight. You're not focused. And I'm like, what the fuck? You take me out of the lineup for laughing? Friggy? Obviously there's no laugh about this stuff because he's so animated. He hasn't changed at all. He's just like a goofball. So guys like that, you got to have guys like that to keep it light because it's it is a business, but at the end of the day, it's a game. This is a game that you played since you're, 4 or 5 years old, and the locker room. It's you have to have some level of fun and space to be human because it's a grind, right? And that was the stuff I missed the most is just characters like that, just constantly pranking, doing stupid shit, and goofing off and keeping it light, because it needs to be that way. It's too stiff. It's not good for the team.
No, it's not good. I've wore different hats in my career. But especially in Carolina, when we were really struggling the last 3 years when I was there, I really became looser and looser and looser. After my first year, I would get sometimes reprimanded a little bit. I just take it, because I'm shit, I am pushing a little bit too much in the position room right now or whatever. But I'm just trying to keep the guys. I knew what I was going to bring. I was what I was in the league. But some of these big guys that were really relied on, I think they gripping the stick too tight, if you will, especially when you're going 3-13 like we were, and it's tough, and they're getting the criticism. And we were in Carolina, nothing to do with Philly. We would be booed off the field every game. We got booed off the field once or twice. My time in Carolina. What's your favorite memory in Philly? I know you guys won a bunch of games, won a Calder Cup. Is there any memories that stick out to you playing as a Flyer?
Yeah, I mean, the Calder Cup was pretty special. It was the lockout year, 04-05, and then we landed up. We had an awesome team, and we were scoring by committee. I think we only had a couple guys on the team. Maybe Patrick Sharp played a few games, Dennis Seidenberg, a few guys that only played some games with the Flyers. So it was a lot of guys that were just drafted in the organization that really hadn't had their shot. Just an amazing team. John Stevens was the coach. Chief was assistant coach. And then we get Carter and Richards in playoffs. These guys are fresh out of junior, and they obviously go on to be, high-end pros. But that year itself is just you talk about energy in a locker room, and just this is the way it's got to be. This is fun coming to the rink. This is it. So that whole year and winning a championship, that was my first year in Philly, where I wasn't even on a contract all year. I was signing 25-game, tryout agreements, and it was just this crazy crazy roller coaster of a year, but nonetheless, overall, like an amazing year in Philly. And that led me to, signing an NHL deal and eventually playing the NHL, a year and a half later or so. But I would say that sticks out. Our run in 2010, I know we lost to Chicago, but like just that run was insane. Like making the playoffs in a shootout in the last game of the year with Bush there against the Rangers is like just insane, great team chemistry. You talk about momentum, finding that rhythm right at the right time. Amazing ride. And I would say like my first NHL game was probably just like this feeling of like this is like all the shit I've poured into this since I was 4 years old, the dream itself. And when I grew up, the dream wasn't me being a fighter and fighting 35 times a year and fighting all these meatheads. However, it was like, here I am, and now I can do my thing, so like just that feeling of, I guess, a sense of accomplishment, when you finally step on the ice, in the big leagues. I would say like that memory is wild, but there's just so many stories. Again, a lot of it is like not even like on the ice stuff. Like it's like
it never is. Very rarely, unless it includes like a group of people, like a line brawl or like a boosh, right? You weren't even on the ice for that. It was a shootout, or I think it was a shootout, right?
It was, yeah.
Yeah. I remember him like going towards your guys' bench, going crazy. I can't imagine being on that bench. I have goosebumps thinking about it, like coming off, being just so jacked up. You guys beat the Rangers at clinch. I was watching it somewhere with my buddies probably and my dad. And yeah, I mean, you guys created so many memories for the city of Philadelphia. I know the city of Philadelphia poured into you guys. Those playoff games in Philly are just insane. And losing the, Patrick Sharp scoring. I mean, excuse me, Patrick Kane scoring that goal and all that. But still, you guys were so much fun to watch. All right, lastly, I got to ask your cliche question here. Who were the biggest pain in the asses to fight?
Pain in the asses? I mean, there was a couple like super heavyweights that I was certainly not looking forward to fighting, but I knew I had to. Donald Brashear, George LaRock. There was, Brian McGrattan, guys like Steve McIntyre. Like these guys are just massive humans, like 6'5", 250 pounds. Like I shouldn't have been fighting them, but say pains in the ass, meaning like God, I'm gonna have my work cut out for me tonight. There was a lot of guys that I enjoyed, enjoyed fighting. Like that, they were more my weight class that I was like when we were playing them. Like guy like Sean Thornton or Cam Jansen or Aaron Asham. Guys are just a little bit more in my weight class, like a little bit more enjoyable to mentally prepare because it's like, oh yeah, here we go. It's like full on battle. Like versus like when I'm fighting Brashear, I'm like, it's like okay, like. Let's not get caught in his trap of like, pushing and pulling me and ripping me all over the place. And there was just a lot more like technical stuff that it was just basically avoiding not getting my ass completely beat. Yeah. But then there was guys like, Sean Avery, who I would love to have fought and getting after him, and Patrick Coletta, Buffalo. And there's probably a few others that I would really wanted to get, but never got because, then the Colton Orrs would step in or the Andrew Peters would step in or whoever like that. But the hardest, the toughest ones were just, again, the guys, the super, super heavyweights, like George LaRock. I mean, I actually had a couple pretty good fights with George LaRock and shouldn't be fighting that guy, but they don't lose, they're just big, strong, legitimate veteran fighters. And definitely not, not something you wake up in the morning excited about. It's like you gotta kind of just like pretend it's not happening. You're doing it, but you gotta like put it in the back of your mind because if you think about it all the time, it'll drive you absolutely squirrely.
That's like the mindfulness stuff. Like you're just separating things and you're focusing and you're in the moment. And when it happens, and you go and you've always risen to the occasion your whole career. That's all I thought about it. Like I changed my whole ways before the games. I was always like Metallica and I had this playlist and I had to listen to this. And then I was like, screw it. Like my right when I got to Carolina, like midpoint of my career and the height of my career, I was like, I'm listening to what I listened to in the summer, having a Corona Light. Like I'm just going to listen to reggae and walk out there and play. And I played my best.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, I had to still eat my meals and like be prepared and like prepare my body. I wasn't like off the rails, but I just was like, this is what I'm going to do. All right. Lastly, best player you played with in your career and why?
Best player, man, I played with some good ones. I mean, Claude Giroux's got to be the top of the list. I overlapped with Peter Forsberg, but he was right at the end of his career with his feet issues. But that being said, I would say as far as playing with a guy that's high end, he's definitely at the top of the list. Claude Giroux, Simon Gagne, Kimmo Timonen, play some really good players.
You play with Pronger?
Pronger, yeah, Prongs.
They were older though.
Legitimate, yeah. Even when I squeezed in at the start, like Darian Hatcher, I know he's he's
old school.
Hatch, he's a big Hatch, and but as far as like elite guys, like man, I'm telling you, because my first year when I made the Flyers, he started off the season with the Phantoms, and obviously you knew he was elite with his hands and everything like that. To see him evolve the way he has, and like come into a leadership role and become a man, and but this guy, like, found me watch the Flyers game against the Senators the other day. This guy still got it, man. This guy can play another 5 years and probably
easily
get 80, 90 points. Briere, I say Briere because he playoff competitor. This guy he wasn't just skilled, he was gritty. Like, he would get into the hard areas and find a way to come out with the puck, and he wasn't afraid to get in your face, and he wasn't, he wouldn't fight, but he would stand up and puff his chest out a little bit, but yeah.
He knew he had you on the bench. That's why.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think he needed me. He's a pesky guy, but
he was
having a guy behind him certainly helped a little
Drew,
bit.
The thing with Drew is, people in Philly, I think, they see their star player, right? And he's like, that's the star. He's got to be X. And I think Drew is an all-star. Mm-hmm. I think they try to make him Sidney Crosby or Ovechkin. And I just think that's another tier, and that's okay. But he's in that tier below them. And that's no disrespect to Claude. Like, we're talking about an all-time great NHL player.
Mm-hmm.
But you're putting him up there with guys that are like the top 25 players of all time. And I think that's where I think Billy really I'm like impatient. And I'm like, hold on a second. Like, numbers-wise, he's up there with them.
Oh, yeah.
Dynamic. But, like, they just impact the game in the same way Claude does, but just, I think, a little bit more. And I think that's the difference. Like, it's not a bad thing. It's not a negative. But I just think that's where I think in Philly, people got frustrated, fans, but people in the building knew, right? This guy's unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah, and I will say, I agree with that. You got the super elite, and he's maybe you could argue maybe like a step or a slightly step below that. But I will say too is if you look at those superstars, Batman needs a Robin. The Flyers never gave G a Robin. He was Batman on his own. Look at Crosby. You surround him with I'm drawing a blank now. Malkin, right? So you got the Batman, the Robin, and then you had these, this nice core around him. You look at Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews.
They were loaded.
It's Batman, Robin, and you have to have that other superstar.
Yeah.
It's because you can't just put all your weight on G and be like, hey, if he's not pulling his weight, which he always was to some degree, it's easy to just rip on him and say, well, he's not doing enough. But it's where's that extra help? That's the way I always saw it. And I don't want to downplay anybody else that we've had on the team that were great players, but again, these franchises that have won Stanley Cups in the last 10 years, you go on the list, they had a Batman and Robin. Every one of those teams,
more than that now. They have six. They have 6 guys.
Yeah,
Tampa,
right.
Loaded. The Avs loaded.
Exactly, loaded. Yeah, exactly. You look at the Batman and Robin combo, and it extends. It's, you got this Captain America team in some of these teams, and Ovechkin,
Backstrom,
Salmon, all these guys are around him, some really skilled guys. But I think you need that. You can't have one lone ranger where this is your lead player, and then everyone else is kind of built underneath him. And then you have to draft those players, and this is like going like you don't just scoop those guys up in free agency because they're usually past their prime at that point. So all these teams that I mentioned, like they drafted these core guys, and they cultivated them within, and they became elite players. So I think the Flyers maybe you can go beyond. You can go beyond the roster into like the draft and look at the draft. Those in those 10-year spans, like what happened to our first rounders that were supposed to be the Robin or maybe potentially the Batman? They failed to hit some for first rounders that became like yeah, right. So like Nolan Patrick. You mean you got a couple first round guys that never. Never. I mean, he might have been a little later on to really compliment.
No, but he was supposed to. I mean,
yeah. But you need those guys. You need to draft. You need to draft well, and you need to your first rounder, especially your top 5. If under 10 picks, like those guys gotta play, not just play. They need to be elite, like the McCarrs and the McKinnons. Like you go down the list, like these guys they're elite. And they have to be. Otherwise, your organization suffers if they could just play. But then you could develop a 3rd, 4th line guy in the minor leagues that you draft in the 6th, 7th round or sign as a free agent. Like your first rounder needs to be a first line center or first line wing or whatever.
That's why Boston's been good.
Yeah, right.
They were all like late first rounders. Like everyone in Philly's like, oh man, the Flyers got to go up or down. They got to tank or they got to win because they're not getting a high enough draft pick. It's like, well, neither of these teams that keep winning, they have late picks. So now they're in great shape, man. I'm excited for the future. That's for sure.
Yeah, they're in great shape. And I think the organization, again, I go back to Briere and Jonesy, recreating old school Flyers culture. And they say old school, like really bringing in the pieces outside of like the Broad Street Bullies when you think of Flyers culture, but like they've brought those pieces back that Ed Snyder put in place, like really just like this energy within the locker room, this pride, the orange and black, this way of playing. Tortorella's done a great job getting these guys. Like no one thought the Flyers are going to be where they are this year, and you got to give them credit. They're resilient, they're relentless, they're finding ways to win games. Got young guys stepping up and in larger roles and producing. They got a bright future for sure. They got obviously some picks that will eventually play and contribute in big ways. This Mitchkov is insane. Like you talk about elite player. Yeah, I mean, you just got to keep his head on straight. I think you got some good pieces, and I think between Jonesy and Briere, like you got the right guys in place. You got get Carter Hart. I mean, you got a franchise goalie. Like the Flyers have been missing forever. I think since Hexy, back in the day, like you could argue Bob Roski could have been that goalie, and we went and traded him away, and you signed Briz. But like some of these moves, they can haunt you for long periods of time.
You play with Briz?
I crossed over with Briz. Yeah, I know him. I never played with him. He landed up signed the next year after I left.
Okay.
But I know him, and
he's nuts.
Yeah, he's a. You know what I'll say about Briz? He's funny as hell, right? He's a goofy guy. I think the media did him a disservice. He maybe should have kept his mouth shut sometimes.
If he stayed in Arizona, it's way different. If he's in Arizona,
exactly. Yeah, you can hide. You can lay in the weeds. No real media. You're not gonna get ripped on for pretty much anything.
Yeah.
But they buried him. You should listen to actually on our podcast. We had him in studio. I don't know how many episodes ago, maybe at the start of the summer. But he come in and he talked about it all. It's like he owns some of his part of it, but he's like, man, he's like these people are relentless. Like they don't leave you alone, and But
who's his goalie coach in Arizona? A real famous guy. You work with like
Darcy.
It could be. I remember Biz on Chicklets saying like he was in Arizona with him, and the goalie coach was like, "Don't go to Philly, bro. Like, and don't take the money." Like,
wow, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, he said just stay either here or go to a small market and get paid a little bit less, because if things go wrong there, Briz, it's not going to be pretty for you.
Yeah.
And I remember Briz saying that. I was like, wow, that makes sense. Great advice, but You know, Philly's different,
Hard to
but
turn down that money though. It's like,
Oh.
because I think Ed Snyder told Paul Holmgren, like, go out and get the best available goaltender, and it landed up being Briz. So you're paying him significant money, right, to come. You got to overpay, and it's like, the agent and the player. It's like, it's hard to. It probably would have been a great advice to take a little bit less and stay in a smaller market for sure. And knowing
hard to
Briz,
do.
because it's not an easy place to play, and you got to be like. Talk about mentally resilient. Like, that's what Carter Hart. I mean, I coached him briefly when he came out of juniors when I was at the Phantoms to play a few games. And this guy had like a sports psychologist at the age of like 13, 14. I mean, you talk about like being able to reel it in and not be bothered and distracted. Where I think Briz, it's like, he was playing into the media. It got, you can't do that. You're not going to win that game. And then you got to stop the puck if you're gonna be vocal like that. And it got squirrely there. So he's still getting paid, so he's probably not complaining.
Is he still getting paid?
The bio, yeah, he might have one more year or something. It's crazy. Yeah.
Well, listen, man. Everybody, check out Nasty Knuckles, Riley Cote. We should go 30 to 45 minutes on here. We went an hour. We could have done 2 hours. I can't thank you enough for your time, and thanks for all you're doing, man. It's really inspiring stuff and helped me today. So I'm going to do a little mindfulness today, go back to my roots, do a little relaxation, some deep breathing, and maybe I'll hit yoga at the gym today too while I'm at it. Get me moving. So I appreciate you coming on, man.
Of course. Thanks for having me. Great to connect.